Thank you very much. And hey, for me this feels like homecoming. I'm from Sweden, so I'm practically a neighbor. I live and work in Germany for SAP since many, many years. I'm somewhat of a veteran. I've been at SAP for 17 years. And I'm an odd one out in the SAP community because I'm from marketing. However, I found a soulmate in Paul this morning. I realized he's a fellow economist, so I don't feel so alone anymore. And we're here today to talk about how to build an innovation culture, why innovation is so important, and why a community is the best place to innovate. But you know that already. And I want to start with, I will explain what the dog is doing in the picture. But we know why the SAP community is special. I want to congratulate you for being part of something that is super special. When I discovered the SAP community probably 5 or 6 years ago, I couldn't believe that this had been there all this time and I had no idea. I had been at SAP for 10 years at that time and I didn't know the SAP community. And then I went to my first SAP Insight track and I'm like, how could I have missed all of this magic? And the reason why I'm saying that is I feel like community is something that is super special, but it's also super hard to explain to someone who isn't experiencing it, who isn't feeling it. And so what I do when I explain communities, I use something from my personal life. Here's where the dog comes into the place. This is my dog. His name is Reggie. He's a rescue dog from Hungary. And I am encouraging everyone, if you're thinking about getting a dog, get a rescue dog. They are the best. But that is not the point of the story. When I got this dog, it was March 31st when he arrived. At that time, I had managed to live in my village in Germany for 7 or 8 years, and it was possible for me to live there for 7 or 8 years without knowing anybody in the village. And I don't know if that means that I'm particularly antisocial. I hope not, but I was traveling a lot, I was working a lot, I wasn't really engaging a lot with the people around me. The day after the dog arrived, I knew all the other dog owners in the village. Those of you who have dogs, you know exactly what I'm saying, right? I think it's the same with children, but there is something about having a dog that immediately makes connections. And obviously, after knowing all the dog owners, over them, I got to know everybody else in the village. So all of a sudden, I was very integrated in this community. But that's also not the point of the story, because I was a first-time dog owner. I had no idea. What do you feed your dog? What do you do when he doesn't do what you tell him to? And by the way, it's always your fault. It's never the dog, just so you know. What hairdresser do you take your dog to? There are all sorts of decisions that I didn't know you have to make for a dog. And what did I do? I turned to my community, my new community of dog owners in the village. And to this day, I would say I'm not making any decisions for my dog without consulting my dog community. They are my trusted advisors. Why? Because I know that they care as much about their dogs as I care about mine. So any company who is offering some service or product for dogs, they can market to me all day long. I'm not going to buy anything without consulting the fellow dog owners in my village. This is the power of community. This is where you learn. This is where you get support. This is where you find people who are as interested in your success as you are, and where you are supporting each other with the knowledge that you have, helping make each other successful. And I believe that in complex environments, this becomes even more valuable because the community organizes itself. It's not really impacted by reorgs, by career changes. You're still part of the same community regardless of where you go. And why is that important for innovation? So I'm going to tell you something spectacular. Innovation is not optional. And you will say, tell me something new. We knew that already. Yes, innovation was never optional, but what has changed is the speed at which we have to innovate and even reinvent ourselves to stay relevant. And just to frame that statement a little bit, let's think about UPS. Everyone knows UPS. They bring all the stuff we buy on the internet to us. Luckily, this company was started by 2 US teenagers with $100 and a bike. And their business model was to hand deliver telegrams to people on the bike. Imagine if they would have stayed with that business model. They would not be very busy today. I don't know about you, but I don't send many telegrams anymore. But obviously they didn't stick with that business model. They have changed. They are highly relevant today, still in our digital economy. Another example that I like in this context is BlackBerry. I had a BlackBerry. I was a passionate BlackBerry user. I loved it. And to this day, I haven't found a device on which I could type faster than on my BlackBerry. I was very fast on the BlackBerry. Now I struggle with the touch screen. I have 2 big fingers, I think. So I miss my BlackBerry, but I still don't have it, and I'm sure you don't either. They were overtaken left and right, even though the product wasn't that bad. I really liked it, but they were overtaken left and right by the Samsungs, the Apples, and all the other brands that we have in our pockets or in our bags right now. And this shows something. We used to say that standing still is moving backwards. Today, moving forward slowly is moving backwards. So the speed at which we have to innovate has increased, and that means that we can't rely on just one person in the company, some genius, the CEO or an innovation department, or one person or a dedicated colleague who is going to come up with all those great ideas that are going to keep us relevant. Innovation is increasingly becoming everybody's job, and it's a difficult job because it puts you in a very exposed position. Here is someone in that exposed position. This is Jack Ma. Chinese entrepreneur extraordinaire, founder of Alibaba. I'm sure you all know him. And when he decided to start an e-commerce company in China, which is one of the most restricted markets in the world when it comes to the internet and e-commerce, people thought he was crazy. He could have cared. And today he's worth 30 or 40 billion US dollars. He's worth a fortune. Another example is a woman called Sarah Blakely. I'm not sure if you know her. She's the founder of Spanx. And Spanx is a company who produces underwear. They produce underwear that is not looking good, but it makes you look good. It makes you look thin. And I love thinking about the situation where she was in front of venture capitalists, who I imagine are middle-aged white men, maybe, with a very different idea on what is attractive underwear. They must have thought that she is out of her mind. And she didn't care. She believed so strongly in her idea, and today she's worth millions and millions. So the point of this story is, if you want to innovate, it takes a little bit of craziness. It takes the courage to put yourself in a position where other people will look at you as a bit weird. And there will always be people like Jack Ma or Sarah Blakely or other people who believe so strongly in their idea that they really don't care what other people think about them. If we are saying that innovation is now everybody's job, I would argue that most of us, we do care a little bit what other people think about us. Because corporate careers are usually not made by positioning yourself as the crazy one. So if we want an environment, a corporate environment, where we encourage everyone to be innovative, we have to do a lot of work in creating a safe environment to put yourself out there, to be the one who is ahead of the game, who is thinking about things that other people are not thinking about yet, and being comfortable in that position. So, this takes me to my story. A couple of years ago, I landed my dream job. I was very, very happy. It was the VP of Innovation in Marketing. And I remember when I got the job, my hiring manager told me that it was the most popular job that she had ever posted. More people applied for that job than anything else she had posted. And I felt great because I got the job. I felt really good about myself, until she went on to say that this means that she's going to put more pressure on me than on anybody else in her organization. I said, oh, why? And she said, the reason is everyone wanted this job because they think this is the fun stuff. You will get this little sandbox corner where you can innovate, have fun. There is no pressure. There is no boundaries. You have the cool job that everyone else wants. But it also means, because so many people wanted this job, there are also a lot of people who want to see you fail. So we collectively have to show that there is business value behind this position, for your own protection, but also to protect our investment in innovation. So I was still excited about the job, but I did feel the pressure. And I learned a lot in that position, that when I realized this dynamics that we're in, how much every one of us is required to be an innovator, I decided to capture some of my learnings about what does it mean to be an innovator, or what does it mean to have innovation as your job. Because it is very much an uphill battle. You know this picture. It says more than 1,000 words. And the reason why I like this picture is these guys who are pulling the cart up, they are working really hard with what needs to get done today. They are trying to get the stones up the hill. And they are probably looking at this character there with some funny gadget, thinking, why are you standing around there? You could help us. The stones need to get up the hill. And so it shows us that if you want to be an innovator, you don't only have to have a good idea, you actually have to be really good at selling and explaining. Because you need to make sure that people are okay to take a step back, to pause with what is needed to get done today in order to invest in what's needed to make the process easier and to invest in your innovation. So a good idea is not enough, you have to be able to sell it. So what did I learn on my journey? There are a couple of key success factors to build an innovation culture that creates that environment where people feel safe to have crazy ideas. The first thing that I realized is that an innovation takes confidence and courage. The best way to rob yourself of confidence is to compare yourself to others. So that's where to start. Don't compare yourself to everybody else. What you bring to the table is unique, and we have to make sure that other people feel the same way, that what they bring to the table is unique and it's valuable, especially if it's not the same as what everyone else brings to the table. So we have to learn how to celebrate uniqueness. We have to be prepared to fail as part of the journey. This is another thing that is a lot easier to say than to do. We have said this many times. Failure is the new black. Failure is great. Fail fast and learn fast. There are so many ideas around failure, but nevertheless it's difficult. Nobody likes to fail. I don't like to fail. You don't like to fail. It's not an easy thing to do. So this is also part of creating an innovation culture, is to try to turn that around and to make sure that we celebrate the learnings that come from the failure so that people don't feel exposed if they are the ones who are trying and failing. Be prepared to feel stupid, and this is where the pictures come into play. I think you can recognize me here. I'm just trying to show that I'm drinking my own champagne. And this is the story. This was at TechEd in Las Vegas a few years ago. I was walking the show floor, minding my own business, when I was picked up by these lovely ladies here, also very respected members of the SAP community, looking very colorful on this day. And they were telling me that we are going to make a guest appearance on a TechEd live video of one of our colleagues. And before I knew it, I found myself at the social media stand where we borrowed some props and we, I guess, photobombed a video shoot of Oliver Kohl and I think it was Matthias Steinert also. And I remember I was so embarrassed. I wanted to die on the spot because I thought they are never going to talk to us again. We are ruining their videos. This is very embarrassing. It's going to be broadcasted live. I had so many concerns. But there was no way of pulling out. These ladies are very persuasive. So I went along. And what happened was, of course, the guys thought it was hilarious. They didn't think we ruined their video at all. And it turned out that the video got quite a few clicks on the internet. I don't know if it was because of us, but at least it didn't hurt. And the reason why I'm telling this story is it's actually good. Being in this exposed innovator's position requires you to feel stupid, to feel crazy. So if you have these type of opportunities where in a safe environment you can practice the feeling of feeling stupid, it's a good thing because it makes it less scary when it becomes more important. So I'm embracing craziness and it's an important aspect of being innovative. So the last thing that may sound a little bit strange is dare to be bored. There's a lot of research that has been done which shows that if we are occupied all the time, we can't get any new ideas. And I'm sure you have had the same type of a situation where you're sitting at your desk, you're trying to be creative, you're trying to come up with a really good idea, and the harder you try, the harder it gets. And then you go out, maybe you go for a walk, maybe you're cooking, maybe you're standing in the shower, you do something completely different. All of a sudden, there is the idea. And this is important because in our society today, there is less and less time to be bored. And if we never let our minds wander, if we never create that space to not focus on something, but actually just let the thoughts flow, it's very difficult to be creative. It's very difficult to solve problems. It's very difficult to be innovative. So we have to make a more decisive effort to create those spaces because I'm old enough to know the times without the smartphones. So when you had a break somewhere, you're waiting for the bus or for the airport, I was bored all the time. And so hopefully I was also then very creative. But today, we can fill every little inch of our day, every little spot in our agenda. There are distractions. Even when we are trying to focus, we are distracted by all these things that are pushed towards us. So we need to find space to be bored, and we need to help our colleagues, especially those of us who are leaders and managers. We have to make sure that our teams also have time to be bored, because otherwise they will not be creative, they will not be innovative. Another thing that I learned about innovation culture is that it takes patience. It's very difficult for ambitious people to be patient, but it also takes a drive for results. And this comes back to this moment that just said, I'm going to put more pressure on you than on anybody else. And I said, oh, how am I going to do this? I realized that I have to portfolio manage. So if you're in a position where you have to innovate, it's important to also realize breakthrough innovation may take a little bit of time. And I knew I was not going to get 2 years. In fact, it took me 2 years to come up with a big thing that actually ended up making a lot of money for SAP. And I knew nobody's going to wait for 2 years. I won't have this job in 2 years if I can't show the value in other ways. So I realized I can't put all my eggs in one basket. So you have to spread a little bit more wide. You have to invest in things that are maybe not breakthrough innovation, but smaller ideas, and have many of them cooking, so that you can sell the results of the things that are maybe not revolutionary, but they are improvements that will buy you the time to set the stage for the big win that will come. If you create the culture, if you work with your team in a way that generates creativity and ideas, the big idea will come. But it may take a little bit of time, and it's very, very important, again, to be a good salesperson to sell the innovation that you're producing, so that you buy yourself the time until the idea is executed, that make it obvious the value that you are generating. So the other thing that is probably not a surprise that an innovation culture requires is open mind and empathy. And when I say empathy, I mean specifically the ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes to find out what is it that is going to solve a problem that they may not know that they have. This is a real art, and it requires a lot of empathy, this skill. And it's also about the empathy to understand what motivates your team, especially when we are thinking back of this exposed position where you're looked upon as crazy. Maybe you have only the smaller innovations, there is nothing breakthrough yet. It's a difficult and maybe sometimes also frustrating experience for you and your team. And in those situations, it's all the more important to know what is it that motivates you and also the people around you, so that you can get through these more difficult situations and come to the point where the reward is there. The other thing that innovation requires is thinking big. And I sometimes say that one of the most abused words in our language is innovation, because we use it for things that are not really innovation. And that's why I like the quote of Walt Disney so much: if you can dream it, you can do it. So it's important to have the ability to dream first, to not look at the obstacles before the solution. And sometimes, if we are very execution focused, which is a good thing, we tend to jump to execution too early, which sets boundaries. Whereas if you can not only dream big, but you can get other people rallied around it, you can get other people excited about what you want to do, that way the boundaries you will find ways to remove the boundaries. But if you look at the boundaries too early, the big idea might not emerge in the first place. So focus on the possibilities, not the obstacles. And also the other one that may sound surprising is don't brainstorm. And this is an interesting one, and there's also a lot of research that shows it's actually not very surprising. If you think of a brainstorming situation in a group, there is always baggage with the people who come into the room. The manager's ideas will always get a bit more attention. The extrovert's idea is always going to get a bit more attention. Someone who is known for having good idea, that person is going to get more attention. So actually you are missing a lot of opportunities to get ideas from people who are maybe just more quiet. Maybe they just don't have a good day. Maybe they are not known for having ideas in this particular area, but today they have the great one, but no one is listening because they are not expecting it from that person. So instead, sometimes it can be a lot more effective to create an environment where people brainstorm on their own first, and then you bring the ideas to the table in a more anonymous way before ideas are dismissed because of the baggage, or they are evaluated too early before they have a chance. So the big question here is, and I'm happy to see actually it's quite a diverse group here today, which is encouraging, because diversity is a leading question. Diversity has everything to do with innovation, in my opinion, and there is also a lot of research that supports the fact that you actually need different opinions in order to get good ideas. So diverse teams are definitely more innovative, And it has also to do with if we are innovating for a diverse audience, it's very difficult to do if we are not diverse ourselves. And it comes back to that empathy. How can we understand other people if we are too homogeneous ourselves? We have to reflect the diversity of the people that we are innovating for. But it's also a matter of an innovation culture helping embrace diversity. And I like to think about this in the following way. If you think of the exposed position that an innovator has, that position is very similar to what a minority is facing every day. You are always the odd one out as a minority. If I'm the only woman in the group of men every day, I'm always a minority. There is nothing I can do about it. And that means that you are in somewhat of an exposed position. And so if you are able to create a culture where minorities feel welcome, then you are automatically also creating an environment that embraces diversity, where different opinions feel welcome. So there is a very interesting cross-relationship between diversity and innovation, and I would argue that one doesn't go without the other. So what does an innovation culture look like? How do you know that you got there? How do you know that you achieved it? And this is where I love to think about the SAP community, because I think you see a lot of this here. You can see an environment where there is all for one and one for all, where people support each other. You will see strong people in these groups and in these cultures who don't push each other down, but they lift each other up, who celebrate each other's success. And you will see people who are telling each other what they can do, not what they cannot do. And you also have this is a DJ's presentation, curiosity and continuous learning. You see an environment where people are almost obsessed with learning. And this is why I believe that one of the biggest, I hate to use the word KPI, I'm looking for something else, a big success factor for the community is the fact that everyone is here today on a Saturday. That means something. We wouldn't be here if we didn't think it was worth it, if we didn't have a very strong commitment to learning, to networking, and to engaging with each other. So curiosity and continuous learning is definitely a sign of an innovation culture. There is also the situation with blurring lines. If you have an innovation culture, you will see that people care less about titles, hierarchy, where do you come from in an organization. It's more about what you do, what you know, how you share, and how you care. That's how people earn respect. And you will see people who are celebrating success as a team, not as individuals, recognizing others around them, being generous with celebration, but really putting the light on what is going well. And in the SMB community, I believe that we have a pole position for innovation, because there is definitely a lot of excellence in this community. I am in awe of what I'm seeing in the SAP community. I've met the most brilliant people in this network. And there is also a high degree of tolerance. Look at me, I'm an economist. I was scared to death the first time I was supposed to speak in front of the SAP community, because I knew they are all technical people, they are geeks, and I'm very far from a geek. They are going to throw, rotten tomatoes on me, and nobody did. And in fact, the other way around, they actually appreciated my different perspective. And so there is a huge amount of tolerance, a huge amount of friendliness in this community that really helps anyone who wants to contribute to do so. Inclusion, we just talked about that. Learning is an important component, support of each other, but also the playfulness and the craziness, coming back to the situation with the Tech Ed Live interview. These are important components. If you don't allow yourself to have fun, it's very difficult to be creative. But what we do need, I believe, is even more diversity in the SAP community, and here is where we can all help. So I am closing my presentation with an ask. So there is homework in this presentation. I'm asking every one of you to be a change agent. I'm asking every one of you to leverage your network, because I hope you agree with me, the SAP community is a fabulous place and we shouldn't keep it to ourselves. So let's bring in more people. Let's use all of our networks to bring in maybe the unusual suspects, the ones who may not find the way into the SAP community themselves. Actively look for diversity candidates, but the job doesn't stop there. Once we find the diversity candidates, we have to go out of our way to make them feel welcome. Because in the beginning, and I know this for myself as a marketeer and as an economist, I didn't know how I can contribute, because to do a coding presentation, it would be very, very awful for you to listen to me talking about coding. But I can talk about other things. And in the beginning, I didn't realize that a presentation like this could be interesting for anyone in your community. But I gave it a couple of times because people pushed me, actually very, very dear community members pushed me to do it. And I got really good feedback. And then I realized, I am different, which means that I can bring something to the table. But we need people to tell us that. I needed someone to tell me that. So we need to go out and tell other people who bring different skills to the table to be brave, to do it, and to encourage other people to do the same. So this is my ask. That's how I close my presentation. This is another situation where I went out of my comfort zone. I was singing at a tech ed. And here's it's actually a nice story to close on. If you need to do something scary, then find a partner. This is Katharina Fischer. Those of you who know her, you know she's a fantastic singer. So when I knew I had to sing Happy Birthday in front of all the community members, I quickly grabbed Katharina, and it was a lot less scary to sing together with her than it was to sing alone. So let's sing together the praise of the SAP community. Let's make sure everyone hears it. Here are my contact details. Feel free to connect. I'm on Twitter, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm also existing in real life. So I'm looking forward to spending the day together, and if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
I'll use this time to
Yeah,
give
throw a
some
box.
instructions because today we're using this catch box for the questions. This is just for the stream. So you'll get this, hopefully in your hands, not in your face. And just try to speak clearly into the mic when you ask the questions. So does anyone have anything for Malin? Questions?
Feedback, Rotten Tomatoes, no?
What do you think?
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, since SAP is such a big company, what are the biggest challenges in terms of internal innovation and external innovation?